Hello everybody and welcome to this Openflow fundamentals video where I'm going to show you how to get up and running quickly by turning manual processes into smooth automated flows on top of your existing tools. Let's get going by creating our first flow. This was it. Let's give it a name. Let's save it. And if you go back to the overview menu, we see that the first step is done, and in the flow builder our first flow is created. Let's immediately go over to step 2. Openflow runs on the top of the tools you love. This means we need to authenticate your apps in order to request or send information. We do this by adding API keys as secrets. Let's get started by adding your first secrets. To give a first example, let's add a postmark key. Let's add a Slack key and a GitHub key. Immediately add them to the apps they belong to, which will automatically authenticate them. Now that we added the secrets, we can continue building your first flow. In order to create a valid flow, we should always start with a listener. A listener will always have a start batch, and we suggest only adding one listener per flow. So let's get started. Let's go with a scenario of where your customer mentions you on Twitter. Based on the tweet content, we add a sentiment analysis, which we can later have different outcomes on. With the sentiment analysis, we immediately add an email to your customer, and later we notify the team based on the urge of the request of your customer. As you may notice, different cards have a red cross, which when you would hover over it, it shows that the configuration is missing. This means those cards need further configuration. So let's set it up, and let's start by connecting the different cards to each other. So as we said before, we would like to, after Twitter mention, do a sentiment analysis on the content, connect it to a postmark email to let your customer know we are taking care of their request, and simultaneously notifying your team through Slack. So by connecting those different cards, we aggregate the data to every level. Basically, what content do we want to analyze? That's the tweet content. By dragging and dropping it in the field, it immediately connects and the configuration cross error goes away. Basically, what we do, for example, let's say that we want to send a postmark email. You see that the input data also shows a Twitter mention, but also the sentiment. By hovering over any of these badges, we know where that data is coming from. Last but not least, let's set up the Slack key. We can send the message. Again, same thing here. We can say this is requesting any information. Now that we completed our flow, connected to operations and listeners, and made the configuration complete, let's add global values, where a global value could be an email address, a phone number, or a general text that you'd like to use across multiple flows. So let's go back to the overview. Add a global, and let's add an email address. This email could be anything you'd like. Now that we've created this global, let's add it to the flow. So basically, on the postmark email, we can remove the from, replace it with a newly created global. Congrats on creating your first flow. Let's deploy and make it ready to use. We now go back to the flow builder. We see that our first flow is created. You've completed all the steps and are basically ready to go. Thank you for watching.